I've been hustling for so long, everything I earned, got it on my own, they can't stop me. Yeah. Came up from hustling rocks and things to fancy cars and high style chains, they can't stop me. Running away from me.
Drop the top and let the wind blow. If you ain't trying to win, play what you in for. Real copy that like 10-4. Vet whitey's little the acclaimed pro. This roots to this that's just how the game go. Scared money don't make it, so I gain more. Paper change, I got the same hoe. But my mind frame in a different lane though. Of fame, I change what I aim for. The Cali Kush help me ease away the pain slow. Fake ain't ish, seen them come and go. And real recognize real straight from the dough. Yeah, I rep the foe, cause that's what made me. 10 toes down when it wasn't all gravy. But it's still pavement, so I gotta ride for it. And if you feeling how I'm feeling, what beside for it.
I've been hustling for so long, everything I earned, got it on my own, they can't stop me. Yeah. Came up from hustling rocks and things to fancy cars and high style chains, they can't stop me.
Ballin' MJ, G bro, Space Age pimp. I talk, a don't like that. She could walk, see everybody ride with you when you're ballin', but start disappearing when you're fallin'. My got life cause it's on kinfolk. Snitch to them folks when they caught him with that dope. So much pain and the don't stop. Work hard and get robbed, but it not. My little hustle to the corner got hot. To the with the mask had to run up in the spot. See through my life I learned that good things like love for your fam and big dreams always turn good when you put good in it, and it'll turn up when you change.
I've been hustling for so long, everything I earned, got it on my own, they can't stop me. Yeah. Came up from hustling rocks and things to fancy cars and high style chains, they can't stop me.
Can't stop. A hill to a mountain, stayed in the game, kept the ball bouncing, blocked out the haters, ignored the naysay. Everybody shined, and they did it their way. I'm gon' do it my way, feet to the concrete, cause all of this could be gone just within one beat of the heart. I could be history, I get it while I live, cause I can't take it with me, but I will leave this legacy behind on me. Out here trying to get it on a hustle, on the grind, on him tight, him chain, never hard to find. If you think it's something real, then I must be on your mind. Each minute I'ma try to get a dime for a nickel. I'ma show you how to get it each time that I'm with you with that independent money, independent thinking. I'm the captain of my ship, staying in it when it's sinking.
I've been hustling for so long, everything I earned, got it on my own, they can't stop me. Yeah. Came up from hustling rocks and things to fancy cars and high style chains.
What's happening? If you know, you know.
I've been hustling for so long, everything I earned, got it on my own, they
If you
can't
know,
stop me.
you know.
Yeah. Came up from hustling rocks and things to fancy cars and high style chains, they can't stop me. Running away from me.
What's happening? Impromptu, extremely impromptu. I've been having some technical difficulty, so I had this plan to go at 9 o'clock and then had to go out, come back in, go out, come back in again. But I'm here. Usually I'm streaming both on YouTube and X, but that's the technical difficulty. So tonight it'll just be on YouTube, and it's a surprise stream. And so, the conversation has been crazy this week. And man, I've been meaning to get, into all of this. I wanted to take some time. I had a plan on going live on Wednesday night, but life be lifing sometimes. And then also I wanted to make sure that, what I said was meaningful, impactful, and made sense in the ultimate grand scheme of hey, you don't want to say the wrong thing. You don't want to act out of, any kind of, emotion or come from a hateful place. So yeah, take a few days, think about it, and then come with it. So here I am. Jaleel Bennett, what's up? Now, I know that there probably won't be a lot of you in this chat tonight, so this will be something that people will watch after the fact, which is fine. My goal wasn't necessarily to have a huge audience. There will be a call-in portion if you decide to call in. I'll put the number on the screen if you want to chat. We can do that, but I do have a lot to cover, so that'll be much later in the broadcast. But all right, so starting point. I'm gonna be honest with you. I felt a bit of personal responsibility for coming out and speaking to this situation. I know that every content creator has covered it. Obviously it's made it all the way to ESPN First Take today with Cam Newton. And we'll get into what Cam had to say in regards to Steve Smith's comment. But it's where it came from that's important, right? Because Sunday, and I mentioned this on my last live, which was the Mint Street Mondays. If you don't know about Mint Street Mondays, we go live every Monday at 10 a.m., so make sure to tune in to Mint Street Mondays. But I typically go live on Mondays, and Sunday during the game, like many of you, I'm tweeting and, sending out, tweets and doing all this other kind of stuff, right? And so during that time, I was, watching the game, and there's the 2-minute warning. You got a minute and some change left, and a minute turned into, 50 some odd seconds or whatever. But there was a JT Sanders catch, right? I think it was a catch, but the referees might have thought differently. Obviously they did. They turned the catch over. But during that time, I'm watching what's happening in 2 minutes, right? And I see Xavier Legette after the fact. Now, I do have to clarify this yet again, because it wasn't my intention, because I do feel I do take a bit of personal responsibility for how this whole thing is blown up, because I'm not so sure. The video that was shared around was the video that I had done on X, and you could hear my commentary in the background, which I will play again here in a second. But when it happened in the moment, when I was recording it, I was more speaking from a broader place, like, hey, let's get going, not realizing the reason why things weren't moving as quickly as they should have been was because X was kind of lollygagging, coming back to the line. Now, Dave Canales did say in the press conference, I think that following Tuesday, it might have been, or maybe Monday, for all I know, David Newton asked him, he's like, hey, have you seen the video floating around about Xavier Legette and not getting back in line or whatever like that? And he's like, yeah, in the second half, we were doing a lot of substitutions or whatever. And like, I did find that a little weird, only because typically the way, 2-minute drills work is like, if you're on the field, you're on the field, unless there's a spike, like if somebody runs up to the line of scrimmage, and maybe somebody that's more of a football, maybe an actual football player or somebody that can correct me on this, but like NFL football player, right? But like, you run up to the line of scrimmage and you take the ball and spike it, but if the drill is, especially, and it's not even necessarily a 2-minute thing, right? If you have a questionable call, now I know that this may be hard for everybody to see on the field, but some people would be able to see if there's a questionable catch, man, immediately you want to get back to the line of scrimmage to try to get the ball moving, so that way the refs either don't blow the whistle or take time to see it or hear the protesting from the other side of the field saying like, yo, that was not a catch, and then they get going, and it's just like, it's one of those situations where you just like, yo, you want to see urgency in that moment, right? Especially from a situational perspective, like it should have just been happening like right away, but it didn't. And it resulted in this video. And like I said, this was me just kind of spur of the moment, I mean, I do kind of, I ain't gonna lie, I feel bad because I didn't realize that this was gonna, do what it did, but this is it.
The first down marker to Xavier Sanders.
Yo, this is what I'm talking about right here. Look how many seconds are going off the clock, man. Where's the urgency? Get to the line. Let's go. Crazy. Now, you couple that with, 8 targets, -2 yards, which, in fairness to XL, some of those targets weren't on him. Some of those targets were bad balls. There was one where he ran what looked like a curl. Bryce Young dirted a ball to him, kind of throwing on the run, couldn't necessarily, or throwing with his back foot or however it was. I don't remember exactly, right? So it wasn't all on him, right? Now, running this, I guess, jet sweep, if you want to call it that, or end around, like, you know, kind of drifting backwards, not really going forward. That's where the -2 actually came from. And that was, you know, a little bit of a tough situation for him. But all in all, I don't think that it was necessarily all on him as far as the stat line was concerned. But when you couple this with not blocking last week and, you know, not really being in rhythm with the offense, it was a powder keg. So like I said, when I'm watching the video, like when I'm seeing it in real time and I'm recording, I'm thinking like, yo, X is in motion, they getting ready to run a play, which conventional wisdom would tell you, well, if you are in 2 minutes and you got a minute and some change left, you're probably not going to be running in motion just to see what especially if you're in a situation where, look, it's 1st and 10 now and there's a questionable call. You're going to get to the line, snap the ball, and you can see it. I'm not going to play the audio, but you can see on the video, you clearly see, like, after this happens, Hunter Renfro's at the line, right? Hunter's actually the first person to kind of signal like, hey, man, let's get going. Then you see Bryce, get over there, get over there, get over there. And so finally, darting down the field, get to that side, and then the rest is history. You know, they overturn the call. Now, do I know if that would have helped us? No. Who knows? But it's those precious little seconds and moments that will be all the difference in the game. Like, that can completely change the outcome of this half. Who knows if they get in, you know, position to be able to get 6. I mean, we are pretty far back there, right? And the rest of the drive didn't really go as planned. But the point is just like, from an urgency perspective, you would just want to see somebody that would be a little bit more attentive to what's going on in that moment. So that's really all it was, right? Yes, I am potting on a Friday night, man. Just random, right? And then Hitman said he mad Tet there. I mean, it could be. We'll get to that. But, all right. So that all happened. So then that prompted the next thing. And that was Steve Smith. Now, here's what we're going to do. We're going to listen to this whole thing in totality because there's some other things that Steve said in this before we even get to the Legette thing that kind of proves the point of what all of us were talking about in the first place. Now, what I do believe is that I believe Steve came from a perspective of, I like this kid, and I don't like to see people dogging this kid. And I also have some experience with people dogging me, right? But we'll get to it. So let's start.
An onside kick recovered, but could not finish out the comeback, and they fall to 0-2. And Carolina Panthers legend, NFL Network analyst, our buddy Steve Smith Sr. is back for his Monday conversation to talk all about it. Steve, I appreciate you as always. Is that a game that we can be should fans be optimistic that they fought their way back? Does it mean anything when you're down 27-3 and an opponent kind of takes their foot off the gas, but you fight your way back into it? What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. That is something that you need to understand, that it's a fight. You can't teach a fight.
Stop right there. Is that not the whole point? When I heard this interview and I played it back in its totality, that's the first thing I thought of when he said that. I was like, you can't teach fight. Let's keep going. You
can't. I know a lot of people believe in it. People, I've had people say, "Oh, Steve, you need to come out here," or Kyle, hey, or Johnny, man, come teach this guy how to do something. Let me explain something to you. You can't teach a dog how to bark, do you?
Nope.
No.
How about a cat meow?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay. So if you can't teach it, it's either for you, or you got it in you, or you don't.
Period.
Okay, so that's a good thing. So we look.
All right. So again, the larger point of this whole thing, I think what gets mixed up in all of this is just kind of the hate comments, the hate stuff that came at Xavier Legette. But at the root of what we're talking about, like I said, keep it in context. Is not what you just said at the beginning of this, right, that triggered the larger point that we'll get to eventually. Is that not what we were arguing? Most people were arguing the exact same thing. National TV getting embarrassed about not blocking. Mark Schlereth calling you out. Come back the next. And it's like, again, I've said this before, I will say it again. When you promote all the stuff that you promote, you leave open room for people to have these type of critiques. Is it fair? No, it is not. But when I know more of you about busting open a squirrel, like that's a problem, especially with the level of talent that you have, right? So if you see, because I mean, you look, in a lot of ways, and I wouldn't be the person to be an expert to know this enough, but it just feels like this coupled with other things is impeding the progress of what you are doing on the field. Now, somebody has said in the comments that he upset that Ted is here. I wouldn't necessarily say upset, but affected, because him being drafted, it's hard to get away from those conversations. And look, as a 20-something-year-old guy, man, and you know the world loves you, man, and they love. I told y'all, man, if Xavier Legette catches that pass last year against Philly and we win that game, bro, he is out of here. But I also think that would have drew so much momentum for the team that there's a chance that this team would have finished with a, you know, just below 500 record and been in the conversation for a wild card spot with Atlanta and Tampa Bay. Because I think that's what kind of momentum would have happened if you go into a team that end up winning the Super Bowl. And who knows, that may have even altered the whole playoff picture if we win that game, right? Because you go into a place like that in that kind of hostile environment and you're the hero on a ball where you literally blew past a corner who just got, or I think corner/safety, who just got paid by another team, turned them around, right? And people forget, not just that, the drive doesn't even get to that point without you. That's what's so fascinating about this whole conversation. It's just like you clearly know that there is something going on here. It's something more than just, he said it himself, and we'll get to his own words in a minute. But he said it's more mental than anything else. But it's deeper than just that. Maybe it's, I got too much dip on the chip. Maybe it's, man, I probably shouldn't have done that video over the summer. You know what I'm saying? Maybe I shouldn't be out riding horses with Jimmy Horn Jr. or whatever else I'm doing, and it be seen. I'm not saying as a personal, in your personal life, brother, you can do whatever you want to do, right? But it's what you're putting out that people consume that it's like, okay. Because look, I seen my homeboy Keeb in the chat. Keeb, no, me and him have talked about this. Those CJ Stroud conversations starting to get real, real loud, especially specifically when he went up to little bro Caleb Williams, right? And Keeb and I talked about this. I said, look, man, this dude going to every single pod you can think of. You know what I'm saying? Talking. Cool. If it starts to slip, that stuff's going to start coming up. And lo and behold, here we are. And it ain't even necessarily his fault. Protection issues, right? But when the conversations start to get loud about your struggles, they're going to bring back up, well, dog, you did this, which is why I'm glad for all the stuff that we can say negative about Bryce Young. That's the one thing you can't say. He stepped outside for a brief minute during the Super Bowl and then went right back to work. I'm like, to me, like, if you going to be that loud, man, you have to, like, the play has to be there, man. It just has to be, right? Let's keep listening.
Looked out there yesterday.
That's a great thing, because I was thinking about this and I was going, okay, I've been in this position, and what does it feel like?
Mm-hmm.
Man, Coach Fox used to berate us behind closed doors. And he would say, we're not good enough to give the other team a 10-point head start on us.
I don't know. Here's what I do know. In the media, there is one person that's definitely getting that message. And that one person deserves that message, and that's Bryce Young. Because Dave Canales has no problem relaying that message in the media, probably even behind closed doors. But again, total team effort. Now, can you, like, look, I guess the way I see this is this, and the Bryce Young apologist in me probably gets put on homie court for how I feel about this situation. If I'm a defensive player, so what? That's my response. So what? Okay, he turned the ball over twice. And? You know what I'm saying? Like, we still – and look, the defense played well. Defense didn't give up 200 yards like they used to doing. You know what I'm saying? Defense actually played fairly well. They didn't break in a lot of fun. And then sometimes they played, look, Princely got a sack, but that's the attitude. So what? He turned the ball over twice. Yes, it's demoralizing, but so what? We still got a job to do, right? I'm not excusing the turnovers. The turnovers are the killers. That's what's putting you in this position to begin with. Hot take. Monday morning, if this happens for a third week in a row, guess what else is probably on the horizon, especially if we start off 0-3. Probably the last time you ever see 9 in a Carolina Panther uniform. Starting. They will not allow him to come. I don't care if it's Andy Dalton. I don't care if they signed or Hendon Hooker off the practice squad. There's not a world that exists where if he's turning the ball over like that again against what is potentially a scary pass rush in Atlanta, man, it might happen during the game. Andy Dalton might show up on, and I don't look. What Thanos said, no resurrections this time. It ain't happening this time. You get pulled this time, it's a wrap. The only thing that they're going to have to do is go up into the office, and this is what will save Dave Canales' job, because some people are going to be like, look, clean the whole thing. I would disagree with that, but listen, if that's where we're going, that's where we're going, right? But you're going to have to walk into the office of Mr. Tepper and convince him that he's the problem. You can see it for yourself, sir. He is the problem. We could probably be competitive if we're not turning over the ball because he's the problem, right? But to Steve Smith's point about just the fire that John Fox had, or even a guy like Ron Rivera, I just don't believe that that's happening in this locker room. I could be wrong. Maybe we just don't get to see it. But sometimes you can tell with the cues. You can see the press conference. You can tell with the cues. You can tell.
Yeah.
So that means you can't. You got to take care of business.
Well, and that's, again, what they did yesterday, and I'm glad you said that because there was the fumble, of course, right out of the gates. Then there's the interception. Yep. You got free hitters running all over the place. And a guy who quarterbacked in your era, I pointed this out earlier, Kurt Warner, was really jumping on head coaches and quarterbacks across the league earlier today, saying that there doesn't seem to be a plan for a lot of these pressure packages that defenses are bringing early in the season, and that it's causing a lot of these offenses to get off to tough starts. What's your take on that?
You know why?
Why?
Because they're not playing in the preseason.
That's a fact. Not playing in the preseason is hurting this team and many others, but us specifically. I go back to a phrase I heard. They didn't earn another start. I don't think I've ever heard anything more preposterous. Earn a start? Like, what are we doing? I think about it like this. If you're bossed up and manager at your job or whatever like that, hey guys, you didn't earn lunch today because you didn't work hard enough. Well, OSHA says different, because if you don't give me an hour break, you're going to get fined, right? So, okay, yeah, go to lunch. Earn a spot? If we got kinks that need to be worked out, if Austin Corbett is struggling at center, which maybe some of this showed up on the first, drive against the Texans. It was a tough drive, to say the least. But these are things that you feel like you could work out. Man, Patrick Mahomes played well into the second quarter of their preseason game, or at least the first couple of minutes. Like, I don't think you should limit that. I'm old enough to remember, man, the year we went to the Super Bowl, man, I remember when it used to be just 3 preseason games. And there were 4 preseason games. My apologies, it's 3 now. But when there were 4 preseason games, that last one, man, it was either the third one or the last one where it was kind of an exciting time. Like, that's the ticket you really wanted to get, because you could very well see the players play into, with some teams, dang near halftime, some of their starters, because they're working out kinks. I heard Magic Johnson say today, he talked about how, the ills of the NBA and how the game is suffering, and he was talking about MJ, and he was like, man, a lot of the reason these guys are getting hurt is because, they're only practicing like a few times. Like, they're not practicing like we used to. There's no more 2-a-days. You know what I'm saying? Like, guys aren't getting like reps like crazy, right? Because you got all these restrictions, based on different rule changes. Some good, some bad, right? But regardless, these injuries are happening. Load management. You know what I'm saying? You think about how much Jordan played, and he was talking about, man, there was a stretch of like 4 years or something like that where Jordan never missed a game. I remember seeing like that. I think it was his rookie year, maybe his sophomore year, where he like messed up his leg or his ankle or whatever like that. And he was like nearly fighting management to try to get back in the game and like sneaking and playing ball, like, you know what I'm saying, pick up games back in Chapel Hill and stuff like that, watching The Last Dance. And that was crazy. But that's what it took. Staying in shape, now I'm the last person to be telling somebody to stay in shape, right? But as a professional athlete, like those are the standards. And so from a preseason perspective, I would have just liked to have seen more, because I don't think everything's new, just like last year. Yeah, the installs are, the same for the quarterback, but man, the protections are new. You know what I'm saying? Cade Mays was your center when Bryce Young went on his, his little run last year, and then you switch that up. That needs to be practiced over and over again in live. I don't care about no joint practices. Lo, if you still here, we talked about this on your pod, man. The whole joint practice thing. Like, I heard Dave Canella say this, and I was like, it changed my whole view of joint practice, because we used to go crazy about it. Oh, man, we practicing against the Jets. They got Sauce. They got Will. They got, all these players. And it's like, so what? You know what I'm saying? Because these guys have a gentleman agreement. Do not hurt each other. They're not going to play full strength out there. Now, when them lights come on and the fans, the few that are in there for a preseason game, they get to chirping and stuff like that. Yes, now it's time. Now we're going to get to it, right? But, and look, I also heard this. They were talking about how when they're playing these 11-on-11s and stuff like this, like, they're not really showing a whole lot. So it really is like just will versus will type of football in the preseason, because they're only going to give you the most vanilla looks possible. So it's just like, whose will is it? Is it my will or yours? Who we going by? You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, the preseason thing was a bit of a issue. But let's get forward a little bit to the point.
Say the turnovers didn't have an impact in the game.
Yeah, they
on your hand, and there's a opposition that's in your way. You give them a little love tap.
So you're talking about McMillan.
I enjoyed that too. I think a lot of us really enjoyed that. Yeah.
But now that's the expectation moving forward.
Yeah. He's gotten off to a productive start. There's no doubt about that. And
okay, I got to say this real quick. This is part of my issue with this whole thing. When he was talking about McMillan, and he talked about McMillan running into the corner after he caught the ball, really, I think what was even more impressive than when he ran into that corner is for somebody his size, height, to have the mobility to, like, catch the ball. And conventionally, you would think catch the ball, turn upfield. His is catch the ball, fake back, and then pick up even more yak running up the sideline, and then blow somebody up. I was like, man, this dude, hey man, Mac gonna be a superstar. And boy, I'm so excited to watch it, because we hadn't had anything remotely close to this. We have our version of what we've seen in the NFC South from other teams that we haven't had. Even with Smitty, no knock on Smitty, but like aesthetically, Smitty played like the height of these guys, but aesthetically it wasn't like that. Like, there's something to watch someone like Mike Evans and McMillan and, Julio and, guys that are Legette, you know what I'm saying? Guys that are, that size and speed that can move like that. You know what I'm saying? So this is really, really fascinating. But I do find this interesting. We go back to the offseason. I believe, conspiracy theory brain, right? I personally believe that he knew that they were strongly considering McMillan. How do I know that? Or why do I think that, I should say? Go back to Dan Morgan and Thomas Davis doing all their, like, pre-draft and post-draft coverage. What'd they say when they drafted McMillan? They dropped this the first day before the draft was even over. Man, we had him on our board in January. We knew if there was any chance for us to get this guy, we wanted him immediately, right? If he is there, we're taking him. Thomas Davis, he going crazy. He excited. Pretty much the whole fan base excited except for one person. Now, obviously, there's other people that probably felt the same way, but they weren't as loud. They weren't the loud voices. There was one voice that was the most loud, right? And oddly enough, a lot of those things that he was loud about all been proven wrong. Can't tell you how much I am happy about that. Yes, I'm pulling it out. Why? Yak machine. Separator. I was told it couldn't be done. It was all false. So, that's why I'm so glad. Look, prove your enemies wrong with results. And I ain't saying he an enemy, because that's a stretch too far. That's a bridge too far. But don't prove people wrong with the talk. Prove people wrong with the results. So now we got to add a caveat. Oh, you running people over? I need to see that energy all the time now. Huh? So now it's got to be that all the time? Nah. No.
Like immediately you can tell that he and Bryce have a level of comfort and chemistry that probably is a little bit ahead of schedule. But I do have to ask you about one of his running mates because, yeah, Xavier Legette's had a really bad 2 weeks.
Look,
go ahead.
He's had a rough 2 weeks. Don't give me this historically. He's the only player in NFL history to ever have a negative play, blah, blah, blah. Look, I get that. I know. I understand everybody's job is to paint a horrible picture that makes people this and that, and that's great. But the young man is still trying to figure out how to play football in the National Football League. Whether people want to give him grace or not, I was a third-round pick, and it took me a while to figure it out.
Agreed. Let me go back a little bit because I want to make sure I get the quote.
And they had an impact throughout the game and other areas, but it is too. I was very impressed with Tack McMillan.
We'll just listen to this
Number
part all
4,
the way through.
T-Mac, impressed. Because when he ran over the DB on the sideline and stood over him and looked at him, that's the physical nature of football.
Indeed.
That's what you're supposed to do when you're 6'4" and you got the ball in your hand and there's a opposition that's in your way. You give him a little love tap.
I enjoyed that too. I think a lot of us really enjoyed that. Yeah.
But now that's the expectation moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, he's gotten off to a productive start. There's no doubt about that. And like immediately you can tell that he and Bryce have a level of comfort and chemistry that probably is a little bit ahead of schedule. But I do have to ask you about one of his running mates because, yeah, Xavier Legette's had a really bad 2 weeks.
Look,
go ahead.
He's had a rough 2 weeks. Don't give me this historically. He's the only player in NFL history to ever have a negative play, blah, blah, blah. Look, I get that. I know. I understand everybody's job is to paint a horrible picture that makes people this and that, and that's great.
Don't you do that too? Wasn't Jerry Jeudy just a jag? You know what I'm saying?
But the young man is still trying to figure out how to play football in the National Football League. Whether people want to give him grace or not, I was a third-round pick, and it took me a while to figure it out.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Listen, I hear you.
There's other higher draft picks who have never figured it out, and they've been out of the league. So, you know, instant grits doesn't always happen.
Yo, Anthony, so yeah, I'm going to drop the number here pretty soon where you can actually call into the show. I'm going to just go through a couple of points if you don't mind to stick around for just a little bit, and I will drop the number so you can call in. Absolutely.
Okay. What about the mental stuff, though? You're trying to run the hurry up there at the end of the first half. There's a questionable call on JT Sanders. I thought he caught it. I didn't think there was any grounds to overturn it. But XL's being jumped on today because he was lackadaisical getting back to get lined up, thereby giving them a chance to throw the challenge flag. Last week, it was the missed block, after the failed toe drag. I mean, do you feel the same way that, he's just figuring it out, or are those mental mistakes that he needs to be criticized for?
Well, here's where the football player in me is going to come out.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this city does well, is bitch and complain.
Okay.
See, you forgot. See, when we went to the Super Bowl 2003, I never forgot how people treated us my rookie year when we was 1-15.
Let me keep playing it real quick.
Okay.
Now, I know some people not going to like to hear this, but if you're going to ride and die with your team, ride or die. That's probably the problem with this weak-ass city, is the fair weather fans. And
Okay.
I said that way is because I've been in this city for 25 years now, and I've heard complaining about everything, no matter what the case is. These young men, including myself, just like young women, nobody's perfect. But when you ain't never did it beyond elementary, high school, and then, yes, you buy a ticket, yes, you earn your way and right to give your criticism, but don't poop on the guy as if he's not out there trying to do his best. And maybe sometimes we just have to say at that moment, your best wasn't good enough, and that's okay.
All right, Steve.
Okay. So everybody has had their say about this, and there's been a lot of good takes. But the one thing that I have not heard a lot of is the context. Like, this is what Cam did today, and I'm glad that Cam spoke up, about this, right? Because Cam provided context to the reason behind why he said what he said. Everybody got hung up on weak city, right? Fair weather fans, all that kind of stuff. And that's fair. You hear something like that and it's immediate, oh, it's up with you. You know what I'm saying? Because, look, let's just speak to that real quick. I'll spend a couple of moments on that and then move on to the larger point again, right? Fair weather fans, weak city. Now, I know that Smitty has already come out and apologized. Now, whether or not you think that apology was sincere, I'll leave that up to your interpretation. But I would be willing to ask a question, right? Were the fans fair weather? These fans have wrapped their arm. I'm not even from Charlotte. I'm from Asheville, right? So I'm a North Carolina native. I currently live in South Carolina, right? But I would ask, like, were these fans fair weather when they wrapped their arms around you when you punched two teammates? You know what I'm saying? Like, two teammates, one who was so bad that his career was never really the same. These people were wrapping their arms around you. Why? Because mainly production always wins. If XL come out here Sunday and tear it up, people like myself included will give him his flowers because he will very much deserve it, right? But when you have, and look, you're not the only person that's been subject to criticism. I find it fascinating that Cam Newton would even come out and have, he started his conversation off with we, I remember when Cam came back, he said, man, I've been waiting to say this for so long. And I knew this was a shot at Tep because they did everything they could, Matt Rule, Tep, all of them, to try to get rid of Keep Pounding. And what did he say at the podium? Keep pounding, right? You were there for that. You experienced that, right? We have had a lot of up and down when it comes to this team. Now, someone like myself, I don't really think my opinion really matters too much. And I think that the weak city comment came from the voice that you heard on that video, which was my own, and blanketed over an entire fan base and a city in particular, right? Because you're there, you're hearing this stuff, right there in person. But there are guys, let's speak to some of the content creators, specifically, right? You got content creators like Panthers on Tap, PSL owner, hard-earned money, far from fair weather. He's not gotten to experience, more than likely, since he's been doing content, a winning season. As a matter of fact, there's only one podcast that exists that actually did experience a winning season, and that was more than likely C3 because they're the longest running, right? But it didn't look like it does right now. So the current iteration of that, they haven't had an opportunity to see a winning season, but they still go hard. You got guys like For Panther Fans Only, probably one of my favorite podcasts out there. These guys literally traveled the country with the team, right? They spend money. They do giveaways, all this other kind of stuff, right? And they've not had a winning season since they've been making content, but they still go hard. What's Up, Doug? Still go hard. Unk 2020, still go hard. And not to mention the ones that you the closest to, Panther Nation Podcast, still go hard, despite not having a winning season since they've been plugging up the camera, spending money on the internet, dropping money on making the shows better. All this different stuff. Panthers Prime Podcast. I'm sure I'm leaving some people out. My apologies. These are the ones that I know personally, right? So when I hear Fairweather and Week City, a lot of these guys live in the city. Man, that is crazy to me. Again, I know I'm behind on all of this, but I wanted to wait and hear what everybody else had to say before I gave my 2 cents. Because for me, I don't think that in the ultimate conversation, I really matter in all of this. I'm plugged into the content. Man, guys like Dunk done traveled to Germany. Dunk spend mad money. I can guarantee you that Dunk don't make half of what he makes spending back on this team from doing what he does. Fairweather? Really? Yo, that's nuts to me, y'all. That is nuts. Pause. Just the gall to say that, man. It was just, like, especially, bro, I ain't even gonna tap into what has happened lately. But despite a few jokes from the people on the side, the people whose voices matter, man, we ain't cover that. You know what I'm saying? Most people did not touch that. Why? Because of respect for you, these same Fairweathers who had respect for you in this weak city. But let me tell you what I don't agree with.
Hey, what's going on, folks? It's been brought to my attention what I said on the radio. Probably should have used some different words. But based on the DMs I've been getting from people, what I said, and then now you're saying you're going to threaten me, and you're going to pull up on me. I don't think that's a good idea. So.
Hey, look. If you threaten someone like Steve Smith for a comment that he made, especially in the climate that we're in right now, when we just saw what happened over comments and words, right? You are a grade A cornball. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Death threat should not happen. I mean, we can have a difference of opinion. Like he says later in this, unfollow me. It's pretty simple. We don't have to follow each other. We don't have to be cool with each other. Like, let it go. But death threats are insane. That shouldn't happen.
I love this city. I invest in this city. My foundation in this city.
And you know what? Heart of hearts, that city, myself included, Smitty, we love you too, man. Straight up. That's what made it so disappointing. To hear that from you. A city that you left. You wanted to leave and went to play for Baltimore. Then you came back, got put in the hall, and now you are employed by the team. Why? Primarily because fans have wrapped their arms around you enough and care about you enough that they platform you because they know that you are going to draw attention. Sometimes by what you say, some right, some wrong takes on players. Sometimes by the criticism, but mostly because of what you have done for us, knowing without question, man, it could not have been easy to go through what you were going through here, right? Think about the stretch, man. How to go from a triple crown, right, and go to the playoffs, to your quarterback having Tommy John surgery in multiple seasons, up and down roller coaster, Matt Moore, Tony Pike, Armani Edwards, you know what I'm saying? Who else? Jimmy Clausen. Man, that's got to be demoralizing, especially for a guy like you who is so passionate about this game that you play. At a size that most people, Steve is such an anomaly when it comes to what he was able to do on the football field, like playing so high above his size. I don't know that you'll ever really truly see another X receiver, which I think that he really was a true, just bona fide X, especially later in his career. his size do what he did. Steve is one of one, right? And I know that had to be difficult. But man, look, I think that's a lot of the reason why we ride for you like we do. But I think also, myself included, is also why we a little bit like taken aback and upset. But I'm glad that you apologize. I think that's what men do. You know, you say something like this and yeah, you stand on it. Because I could tell by this apology, like, you speaking more to the people that's like, yo, just going and ready to crash something over this, right? Which is, like I said, grade A cornball activity. But I think you really meant what you said. Because honestly, I really feel like you've been meaning this for a minute. This has been something on your heart for a while. And when you go through what you've been through, like you said, from the player's perspective, especially when you hear bozos like me, if you want to look at it from that perspective, saying all this stuff about you and critiquing you and making videos about you on X that blow up and, you know, people start, you know, saying all kind of crazy stuff about you. Of course you're going to be like, man, weak city, weak fans, all this kind of stuff. But that's not, you can't say that, especially if this guy doesn't. Want to know why? I'll tell you. Because once upon a time, this guy, you know, I couldn't believe this when I saw it. You know, this guy comes in and has, I mean, literally flipped this city on its head. More excitement than we've ever seen. I mean, even when this team was good, when they were, you know, 11-5 and was a Super Bowl surprise, right? And then 8-8, and then 7-9, and then, oh, we beat the Chargers, then we go 12-4, and we the number 1 seed in the NFC, right? Even those years, it was fun. But some of the most exciting things, even in that season specifically, was like literally, which I'm sure that Rondé Barber's jersey is still under the bank, right? Is seeing Jonathan Stewart literally take Rondé Barber and bury him in the bank. This guy gave you that almost every single snap. And you know what the city, quote unquote, thought of him? They thought enough of him to make a caricature cartoon of him doing the Superman with the Hello Kitty in the middle. Now, here's what would have been funny if that was Atlanta. Our native son up there in Charlotte serving us, right? So we're going to, you know, throw a little jab. It was the Charlotte Observer. Huh? This dude don't have, according to him, any pictures, paraphernalia, whatever you want to call it, around the stadium. He said in very small doses how he's felt about the team, right? Some of the stuff he said I agree with. Some of it I completely disagree with. But that's not what I'm here for today. I'm riding with Cam 95% of everything that he says about the Panthers. Why? Because you don't get the national conversation about this team without him. And quite frankly, when I ran the gamut of all the content creators, you really don't get a conversation about y'all without us. Because the national media, short of a story like this, is not worried about the Panthers. Why? Because the Fairweather City has not had a winning season since this man put on a jersey in 2017. But I'll tell you what, I love this response.
But understanding, too, the people of Carolina are fed up. We want some type of hope of reason of why I'm wearing this jersey.
We want, not they. I'm still connected to the city. Hey, Mr. Tepper, whatever it takes to make it right, go make it right. We want.
Why am I going to the team store? And from the frustrations with the team, or frustration with the players, or frustration with the management, with frustration to any and everything. It's so much that a fan has to go through, and you have to empathize with that. And I know, but at the same time, it's like, what do?
Cam a smarter brother than he, you know, sometimes people lead on to believe. Sometimes I think all the goofy clothes just be a front. You know, when you say that word empathy, you know what you're doing. You know why that's important right now.
Have to keep showing up, whether you're frustrated or not, and making sure that you're upholding your end of the bargain as a football player.
And Cam got it. that was it. Hey, while I finish my monologue really quick, I'm going to drop the number on the screen. If you want to call in, Anthony, if you're still in the chat, I'm going to drop this phone number. If you want to call in and give me what you got, pause, and let me know your thoughts on this whole thing. You can call in 704-729-4727. And yes, I did not mention Pat Coltrane, and Pat Coltrane is my brother. And Pat been doing this for a long time. And I got a special respect for Pat. And he know why. But I love that Cam, of all people, was the one to say this, right? Because nobody has been disrespected more as a former player. Man, I've heard Terry Bradshaw call Mike Tomlin a cheerleader guy. I've heard players get at Terry Bradshaw, but you will never hear the Hines family open their mouth about Terry Bradshaw. Never. And I don't care that Cam didn't deliver a Super Bowl here, or if you want to continue your, nonsense about him not jumping on the football or whatever that is, right? The point is that this guy has done nothing but respect this city. When I'm going to tell you what's even crazy about this, and I don't know that Cam has ever admitted this or said anything out loud about this, but I think one of the most fascinating parts of Cam Newton as a Carolina Panther is the fact that he did grow up in College Park, Georgia, as probably an Atlanta Falcons fan, right? And that bitter rivalry that exists, and it's like, man, you of all people go save that franchise? Like, bro.
Call from
Stevie.
To accept, press 1.
Stevie, what's up? Where you calling from?
Yeah, I'm from Durham.
What's going on, man?
See, I mean, this how I think. I feel like everybody been getting on Steve Smith about the Migo and Excel, like the pre-draft stuff or what they said about him. You know what I'm saying? And I'll be watching his show or whatever. He always like be backtracking a little bit. You know what I'm saying? He like, oh, I did say this, but then he have like a whole bunch of extra stuff to say. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like we see what happened with Migo, we see what happened with Excel, and people talking. You know, fans is talking, and then on his podcast, you know what I'm saying? People letting him know like, hey, look, this the second receiver that you done said, oh, they good, they this, they that, or whatever, and it ain't panned out. And we all know how Steve Smith is, like, he fiery.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and he one of them people, like, he can't take accountability. You know what I'm saying?
I agree with that.
Or I wouldn't say accountability. I would say he hard at taking criticism. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't really tell him nothing. You know what I'm saying? And he known for that for his career. So I feel like it was more of that, and then you take a shot at a whole city, really the whole fan base. You know what I'm saying? Pretty much 2 states. You know what I'm saying? Of fans who like did some bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Not only is we losing, but also our best receiver who ever played told us this and this about these 2 receivers, and they ain't it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, now you mad and trying to say, oh, when I was a rookie, and that's not where it started from. It's not about, you know what I'm saying, the team sucking right now, you know what I'm saying, or underachieving for these past 7-8 years, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't about that with him. That's not the place where he was coming from with it. You know what I'm saying? Because he probably would never said nothing if he wouldn't have heard so much about people saying, hey, look, what's up with your boy Legette? You vouched for him, you know what I'm saying? You said this and this about him, you know what I'm saying? Like,
so let me ask you this real quick, Stevie. Do you think it's possible? Because again, I don't know if you know this. I don't know if you've been, how long you've been watching this, but I'm not so sure if I don't post that clip on Twitter, if this conversation even becomes what it is. You know what I'm saying? But do you think that maybe the behind the scenes, like you said, you think that's what led to him saying this about the fans? Like maybe he was just hearing that over and over and over again, and people were kind of pressing him because remember, he did actually mention, if you go to his podcast and watch that episode, you can see where he mentions about Mingo. You know what I'm saying? And was like, and basically kind of flexed. You talked about accountability. That was a point, right? Because he was like, look, who else got the gumption to be able to go to the owner and be like, hey, you should take Jonathan Mingo? You know what I'm saying? Like, So do you feel like maybe people are starting to press him like, yo, some of these, suggestions that you're making, these guys ain't working out, man. This looking bad on you, bro.
Right, and what he expect people to say, you know what I'm saying? Like, and it was about Legette, but he making it about the team. You know what I'm saying? People not going to him saying, oh, you said the team was going to be good. People going to him saying, hey, look, you said Legette was this, Migo was this, you know what I'm saying? Literally told him, you know what I'm saying? And then just to make matters worse, let's think about it. He won't even giving Tech his respect when the draft was coming up. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, he was spot on with DJ Moore, but you 2 for 2 in my book.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But my whole thing is, like, you can't make it about the fans being upset that the team sucks. Because even if you do want to make it about that, you can't even say that these people out here making millions of dollars or making all types of money off of our dollars, off of our support. You know what I'm saying? And you can't tell somebody, oh, we go like this with the wind, we go like this with the wind. It's just like the stock market. You ain't gonna invest in something, or you gonna pull out of a bad stock of something that's not going nowhere.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So how can you expect people to spend their money at a game, spend their money to get tickets, spend their money to, you know what I'm saying, to do all this other stuff, to watch y'all fucking lose? You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't expect people to support that or be there. If y'all winning, we there.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? But it got to be some accountability on the team part. Y'all need to do y'all job. You know what I'm saying?
I couldn't agree more.
It's certain stuff that come with it.
Yeah.
But it's like, he expect for us to still be there, and we still support because, nigga, we complaining. I mean, it may not be the support that you want. It's going to be the criticism of the team, but we ain't going to pay out. We're going to talk shit. We're going to watch the game at home on our TV, talk shit, you know what I'm saying? But we ain't going to that motherfucking game, you know what I'm saying? Like, I went to that Cowboys game thinking, oh, yeah, we hot, you know what I'm saying? Boom, boom. Last year, you feel me? And I get there, I'm like, what the fuck did I just paid to watch these niggas lose? You know what I'm saying? Like, drove all the way from Durham to Charlotte just to see y'all lose. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, I know we going to beat them. We've been playing good, all this other stuff against Philly. It's just that's what we supposed to do. That's our right. That's our, you know what I'm saying?
The only thing that you're beholden to. Now, there obviously everybody's going to have a difference of opinion, and I'll let you get your last word out in just a second. But the only thing you're beholden to as a fan and as a consumer of a product is greatness, right? And nothing has looked the like of that in many, many years. So the fact that we have this conversation, the fact that you calling in on a Friday night where you could be anywhere else, and I appreciate you, calling in, is because of your passion about this team. So yeah, I mean, I think that comment was, there's no taken out of context like some people would like to say or whatever like that. Now, he meant what he said. And I feel like this is something that he's thought for quite some time, but rightfully so, the fan base pushed back. And I'm glad that he apologized. Hopefully this is, lights a fire even under the team itself, and they come out and handle business against Atlanta.
Yeah, and it's just like, he had no choice but to apologize. You talking about the fans, but then when you come, you want to be recognized for what you done, but the same people that you had, you know what I'm saying? So he had no choice but to apologize. You know what I'm saying? Because it just don't, like, you up in the stands calling the game with Jake Delhomme and stuff, you know what I'm saying, during preseason. Like, you know what I'm saying? You interviewing players and all this other stuff. You involved with the team, you know what I'm saying? So it's just like, how you expect us to still cheer for you and respect you, you know what I'm saying, or not hear no boos when they announce your name, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like, you got to have that respect for the fans, you know what I'm saying? But it's just like, he not defending the team about losing. He not, because when Bryce was playing bad and all this other stuff, you ain't see him get upset or say, oh, you know what I'm saying, try to come defend nobody. But because Legette was tied to him, because Legette's name came out his mouth, and because of the stuff with Migo that's been going on, you know what I'm saying? And then even with Tech, like, he was throwing salt with Tech, you know what I'm saying? So it started from all that. If you go look at the comments of when we drafted Tech and what he had to say, he like, well, you already got Legette. You already got this. I just don't see why you didn't draft Matthew Golden. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then people in
Yeah.
the comments like, you acting like Legette is Tech. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, or whatever. Like, we should have. But we see, if we ain't had Tech this year, one, Adam Thielen would never been traded.
Right.
And two, we would have nothing to really be looking at the game forward.
Absolutely.
Like, the only exciting thing about the Panthers right now is Tech.
That's a fact. All right, I'm going to take another call, man. I do appreciate you calling in, Stevie. Thank you for your passion, man. Hey, listen, we're going to be all right, bro. Keep pounding.
Oh, yeah, for sure, for sure.
Stevie with an amazing call, man. We appreciate all people who decide to call in. And so, you know, Stevie made some great points, you know, when it comes to the McMillan and the situation with how the Adam Thielen thing went down. As you know, I was an advocate of that because I kind of figured we would see what we saw from McMillan early. And I think the reason that they let Adam Thielen go is because they knew after seeing what they were seeing in camp against Thornton, against, you know, Horn, like, yo, this dude is beyond ready, right? And we want to feed him early and often. And the last thing you want to do is take away targets when you can have, you know, this guy, the younger guy already kind of working himself in. Twan, what's good, man? It's good to see you, man. If you're still here, you can call in as well. If you want to call in, the phone number 704-729-4727. But yes, you know, he made a good point about the Matthew Golden situation because Steve's whole point about drafting McMillan was like, hey, and in fairness to Steve, when he made that point, he did say that Xavier Legette, you really don't know what he is yet. So, you know, you kind of understand, you know, that he was not necessarily projecting that Xavier Legette would become like this, you know, immediate success because he has been very like kind of his position has been the same. Like he's a developmental piece, you know, but you want to see him succeed because you can see like, hey, if he succeeds, it looks like what you saw last year just with catches, you know, because with his drops, man, if I'm not mistaken, I saw somewhere, maybe you guys can correct me on this, that he would have been somewhere in the neighborhood of 800 to, you know, 700 to 800 yards, you know, receiving as a rookie, which would have been a huge success, you know, and who knows, that could have been even, you know, amplified because I think part of the reason that his struggles are happening is because there is not a necessary disconnect between him and Bryce. There's a trust issue between him and Bryce, right? And I noticed like there's some plays last year that I think you would have liked to have seen, and this is where people who are the Adam Thielen, you know, like apologists would say like, yo, this is where we could have used him the most. You know, there was a few different times, man, it's, you know, Kansas City dialing up Steve Spags, dialing up zero blitz, and Bryce Young kind of, you know, drifting backwards, throwing with the anticipation, knew exactly where Adam Thielen was going to be, right? It doesn't take speed. It doesn't take a lot of power. What it takes is understanding of the position, understanding of how to run routes. Cam brought that up on 4th and 1. I'll see if I can find that clip, and we'll play that. You know, when he was looking at Xavier Legette's mixtape, and he was like, man, he's watching, I mean, he's literally watching routes, and I'm sure he watched that whole thing. It was just, you know, that one clip that was floating around of him talking about it. But, like, he's looking at stuff like, I'm glad you posted this mixtape because what Cam was saying, I'm gonna tell you what I heard Cam say, and then what I think he was really saying when he was talking about that, right? Cam was saying like, hey, it's time to put up or shut up. Production on the field is what matters most. Okay, Captain Obvious, we understand that, right? That is the obvious. But I think what Cam was really saying when he really started digging into it, he was talking about the type of routes that he was watching. And in his mind, he thinking like, hey, bro, that you are not going to be doing that. So I think in a little bit of a way, Cam was more like, I don't know if this is necessarily the guy that you should be working with. You know what I'm saying? And maybe he didn't want to say that out of respect. Maybe I'm dead wrong. But it just kind of felt like, yeah, this ain't it. Especially, let me say this. I noticed something during the summer. And if you are one of my closer friends and you're watching this right now, you know where I'm going with this because we've talked about this ad nauseum. Because I'll be honest with you, man, because of what happened this week, some of my takes I do try to keep to myself. But I did say in 2025, I'm telling the truth. So I'm not holding anything back, regardless of whether it becomes. I mean, I went as bold on my last show to say that they should trade him. And I'm not saying that trade him from the perspective of like, yo, he's just, garbage. He's never going to turn it around. No, I'm saying it more from like, maybe he needs a fresh start. We could gain something back from it, by the deadline if it doesn't, start to turn around a little bit. But because I just think when you look at the totality of the receiver room and you start like, what if Coker comes back and just starts balling out, right? Where does Legette fit? What if they decide to finally give Jimmy Horn Jr. a chance and he just start turning around, safeties, and that opens up more opportunities for Legette? For McMillan. Where does Legette fit? That's what I'm saying. Like you can get to a point. This could really happen, right? You could get to a point where because the production's not there and other guys show up, you move Hunter Renfrow into, a dedicated slot position where he can just kind of route people up and, get linebackers in space and, and make them look stupid. And this whole offense could turn around. And my question would be, outside of a decoy, a deep decoy just running a go route, where does he fit? So like, I'm not saying that any of that is on the table, but I just think that maybe XL needs a culture where guys can wrap their arms around them that have done this, maybe that have struggled. Because who would, in this locker room, short of a veteran that's like a coach, who really has his experience that he could pull from? And I would say no one. Your leading receiver's a rookie. You can't really talk to me. You know what I'm saying? I've been here a year. What you gonna really say to me to mentor me, right? When it's being mentored. But now, me personally, I've got some mentors in my life that are younger than me, and I'm okay with that. But that's it. That's me in my, I'm not gonna say my age, but that's me at this age. Me at his age, Kanye said it, man, you can't tell me nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like, so that's difficult. Especially when you was drafted to be my quote unquote replacement. That's tough. But as I was saying, I noticed something in the offseason. And I thought, unfortunately, we don't get to see this play out because, he's hurt. But man, there was a few times when I would just see random videos. Jalen Coker at the game with, Bryce Young at the Hornets game, them just kind of hanging out randomly, throwing sessions, all this kind of stuff. He didn't go out to the Minnesota thing. I think it's because of injury. But man, this guy was glued to Bryce Young's hip, right? Pause. That matters. McMillan, glued to Bryce Young's hip. That matters. We may not think it matters, but it does. Go watch some of those old videos of Tom Brady and look who would always be out there with him. Julian Edelman. Everywhere. Working out at the beach. Getting calls in the offseason. Hey, man, I'm busy. You busy? Huh? Now you got to go have fun with him, too. Tom pull up to the Kentucky Derby, you right there with him. But mostly, it was the work. I love seeing that. I do think that when Jalen Coker comes back, he is going to ball out because we got to see a preview of that in the preseason, right? Oddly enough, the only preview we got, I'm not going to do that. But the point still stands. Like this off the field work, your relationship, this relationship, unless you are on the next level from a talent perspective, if you're growing, you got to grow with the quarterback. It's a tough spot to put someone in who wants to. Again, that's why I say, like, man, I really think in the heart of hearts, I think Steve is, there's a dichotomy of two things going on here. You got fans that are restless because here we are. Do you understand, Steve would know this. Steve as a player, because there's we do have some stuff in common with Steve. Steve's a content creator, right? So you understand what it takes, man, to show plan, to, from a timing perspective, and if you do scripts or talking points. I do a lot of planning for my shows, but I also just kind of, run and gun a lot of times. Like when I have conversations like I'm having right now, a lot of this is more run and gun, right? But it takes a lot to do this. And I'll be honest with you. Sometimes it takes a lot to get motivated sometimes, you know? I'm not personally, and this is no disrespect to any other content creators that do what they do. I'm not really like a negative person, you know? I try to usually look at things extremely positive, sometimes to a fault. You know, especially when it comes to our quarterback, you know, many of you would, you know, probably agree with that. But like, man, I know the negativity can be just as engaging as the positivity can. And boy, I love to pop it when, you know, pause, because that sounded crazy. I love to talk my ish whenever we are winning, right? Y'all saw my live. If you were familiar, if you hadn't subscribed to the channel, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss a video. But you probably saw my live from the end of the year, you know, last year. And it was eventful, right? And it was fun. And yeah, I got some stuff in store if we beat Atlanta Sunday, because I just love beating Atlanta, right? I love the city, right? But I don't love the team at all. But we don't really get a lot of those moments. There's not a lot of that going on. And it doesn't really feel the same. You know, I'll give someone some credit, you know, just talking a little bit side, you know, for now. Yes, anybody can call in. The phone number is 704-729-4727. 40 people watching. Make sure to smash that like. Again, I was going to go live on X as well, but, you know, that whole thing kind of blew up. But regardless, we here. But anyway, I started my channel in 2021. And I was prompted to start my channel. I saw someone here. I don't know if he's still here. Twan. I met Twan back in probably the end of 21 going into 22. So we've known each other for a few years. And Twan has a show himself, the 704 Charlotte Bound podcast, which is an excellent show. I love what Twan does. You know, good brother, good contribution to the Panther space. So salute to him and subscribe to his channel. But Twan was a part of another show at one point, Keep Pounding TV. And I will never forget, you know, we had gone a couple of seasons where it was just struggle. I started watching Big Cat Keep Pounding TV around 2020, which inspired me. One of the few interviews that I have done, I've done, you know, a couple of interviews now, but, you know, for a while, the only interview that I had done was him, right? And it was a really, really good interview, right? I don't know what he's doing in the world now, but, you know, salute to him, because again, what I do doesn't exist if I didn't, you know, have him as the blueprint, right? And so, I remember when we got Sam Darnold, and I remember starting off 3-0. You know, that first Jets game, Sam uncorking one to Robbie Anderson. I'm like, oh, this is getting ready to be different, right? And then beating New Orleans. I'm like, oh, this is definitely going to be different. And then beating the Texans on a Thursday night. And we lost Christian McCaffrey. We lost J.C. Horn. But you still felt like it was going to be different. But just to show you the difference in, you know, how content is consumed when a team is doing really well. Man, when we played Dallas that entire week, and I watched the whole thing, man, Cat and all these Dallas fans jawing each other back and forth. Cat's brother is a Dallas fan. You know, it's just a whole lot of talk. By the time the game came around, and yes, they did beat us, but it became a little bit more competitive towards the end. Man, 2,000 people in his chat and everybody screaming at each other. And boy, I loved it. I loved it, right? It was that moment that I decided, like, oh yeah, I'm definitely locking in, because I had my channel, you know, and I would make videos kind of few and far between. But after seeing that, I was like, oh man, I want part of that. I want to experience that, right? And I've had some lives that, you know, before in the past, like I used to do the StreamYard thing where a bunch of people would come up. I just kind of changed the nature of how I do content, because primarily I like to be creative, you know, so a lot of my show, the way that my show is structured is all built by my hands, right? And I like to have a little more control over it, so I use a different platform, Ecamm Live, which I don't mind to say, than, you know, when I was using StreamYard, because I was kind of limited, you know, on what I was doing. But yet and still, just watching that, man, like when this team is good, man, this space is amazing. But to hear fair weather for so many people, there's some people that are in my chat, some people that I see in other chats that have been around for years, for years that not just dedicate themselves to making content, but consuming it and being part of the overall community. I can't accept that. I'm sorry. Cannot accept it. And I don't think that he has to do this amazing work to try to get back and gain the favor of people because, man, people, our attention spans are finicky, man. People will forget about this in a week. If we win Sunday, this won't even be a conversation. You know what I'm saying? Unless he go and say something else after the fact. Now, he may kind of come and try to dunk on a few of us if Legette, go crazy Sunday, which, like I said, hey, I'm a big believer in the praise should be just as loud as the disrespect. If Legette comes out and has he don't even have to be an amazing game. If Legette has one or two plays, if he plays, right? Now, I know the hamstring situation is there, so he might not even play, right? I know it's kind of limited, but if he plays and there's some, success there, yeah, man, I'm bigging him up because I feel like the praise should be just as loud as the disrespect. What I said, I deem as disrespectful, right? So, yeah, I'm going to give him his props. So, last call before I jump off here, man. If you want to say what you got to say your piece. You can call in 704-729-4727. Stevie the Bull said I'm going to call back and tell you how I feel about how you feel about and tell you how I feel about Cam's comments. I'm going to give somebody else a chance to call in, man. I had someone call, and I think I missed the call, and I apologize. If you want to call back in, call back. I liked Cam comments. I thought what Cam said was insightful. I felt like what Cam said was accurate. There's a history there, between Cam and Steve Smith, but I think ultimately what Cam said was, at the heart, as I mentioned on Twitter, I said on X that I feel like at the heart of what Cam said is how we feel, So, yeah.
To accept, press.
What's up? You're in the show. This is John. What's your name and where you calling from?
Hey, this is Keith. I'm all the way in Portland, Oregon.
Portland, Oregon. What's up, man? What you got?
Nothing much. Yeah, I'm originally from North Carolina. I've been in Portland, Oregon ever since about 2011, and I've always and shall always be a Carolina Panther fan, no matter what.
Okay. That's awesome, man. So what you got?
Well, I was watching that interview that Cam did on First Take this morning, and it was kind of funny to me because if anybody knows the history between Cam Newton and Steve Smith, they know that those two wasn't kind of seeing eye to eye when back in the days when Cam first came in.
That's a good point.
And then you're looking at Steve Smith, and he always had a chip on his shoulder, no matter what. And then I remember the game right after Steve signed with Baltimore when he was a Raven, and he lit Carolina up. There's really no ifs, ands, and buts about
Blood
that.
And
he
guts.
came out there and showed out.
Yeah, blood and guts.
What he said is relevant to what I just pointed out because you knew Steve Smith had a lot of animosity because of the simple fact that he wasn't like the top choice because Cam was like the number one guy at that time. And, Steve was coming off of a Super Bowl or better yet, coming off of maybe a couple of years of, having 1,000-yard reception. So there was always animosity between those two. And the crowd kind of like swayed towards Cam. So that kind of, this is just my opinion, but it seemed as though Steve Smith got pissed off about that. So a lot of what he said is from that circumstance and that cycle between him and Cam. Yeah. So, I don't expect everybody to understand that or even to say, hey, he's got an excuse for what he's saying because I feel like that Steve should have put it another way. He's right in one sense, but he was wrong in another sense to put it out there on blast the way he did. And I just think it's a lot of emotion with Steve Smith. Yeah.
I agree.
That's just my opinion.
I do agree with that. I think that, it's interesting because Cam actually went on to say in the same interview, it was kind of, quick. He said it rather quickly, but he mentioned how Steve actually came and he went to Steve's house because when Cam was drafted, Steve wanted out, right? He didn't want to rebuild with a rookie quarterback. And, and then obviously, you have the season that they had together, that rookie season where Cam wins Rookie of the Year, and then go on to the playoffs a couple of years later. And it's like, Steve could have been an integral part of that 15 run. And I know that I've had the kind of back and forth, like, on one hand, maybe Steve could have helped us win that game. But on the other hand, I don't know that Cam has that same kind of season because Cam needed full autonomy over the offense. And, Steve's a big dog, man, and he had been there for a while. And, sometimes those guys are, they set in their ways and they don't want to hear another way, and so maybe it was inevitable that needed to happen. But the larger point, though, as far as the whole, weak city and stuff like that, I don't think that there's been a player that the city has wrapped their arms around more than Steve Smith, considering some of the challenges that he's had, in his personal life and also as a football player.
Right. I agree. Yeah, North Carolina is a different place. And I can attest to that, living in Oregon, because Oregon, they're crazy about the Ducks here, the University of Oregon, and they're crazy about the Portland Trail Blazers.
Right.
Now the Oregon Ducks are the only winning team that they really actually have, but they have like a blind loyalty to the Trailblazers because this Sunday they're having a big, meet and greet because Damian Lillard is back in Portland. He just signed again, and so it just depends on the area because I tend to see the more love on the West Coast teams than I do on the East Coast teams, and I dealt with that mostly all my life growing up because I grew up a North Carolina State Wolfpack fan, so.
I'm sorry.
And we were, everybody, we were losers until that big, Jim Valivano thing when we won the national championship. So it's just about the sport and it's about the love. I do believe that the Carolina Panthers are going to get it together. Now I just don't have the faith in Legette as most people do. I think that Jalen Coker is going to be the man when he comes back from injury, but we'll see. And I'm still going to love the Panthers no matter what. I mean, I'm considering moving to California, and I'll still be a Panthers fan no matter what.
That's awesome, man. Well, we definitely appreciate the call from Portland, Oregon. Thank you, for tuning in to the One Carolina show tonight, man. We will be doing more.
Hey, man,
live
you got one of the best shows, one of the best Carolina shows that I watch. So keep pounding, man.
Man, thank you so much. Thank you for the appreciation, and I appreciate that so much. And you keep pounding too, brother.
Yes, sir.
Man, a great call. Anthony, if you're still there, call in, 704-729-4727. I seen Stevie the Bull ask if I had three-way. I do, but that's something that we'll do at a later time. We're kind of working in the whole call situation. But a great, great call, from Portland, Oregon, man. What a call. That was incredible. And he said, some more, echoing some of the same sentiments that, that we all have, man. I think I actually tend to believe in Xavier Legette, and I do think that this is more mental than anything else. But that's the game. That the mental part of this game is going to be so much more difficult to overcome than the physical, right? Because some of these things, again, the effort situation.
Anthony.
To accept.
Anthony, what's up, my brother?
What's up, John? How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Blessed. How you doing?
Good, brother. Good.
What you got?
All right. So, calling in from the 704.
Yes, sir.
Kind of just wanted to address, this whole situation. First, I want to say, I do not agree with the death threat Steve Smith was getting. Some of that, a little out of hand.
Agreed.
To the meat and the bones of this conversation. We had this conversation on C3 tonight, and I kind of want to just give my voice here. There's an aspect to this where I think Steve is playing two sides a little bit. And what I mean by this is he criticized our team during the preseason, saying, we weren't ready, we didn't look that good, and I don't like him personally attacking us fans. I feel like a lot of us, like you mentioned earlier in the show, the content creators, the diehard, as my father was a PSL owner, we spent the better half of 12 seasons going to games. Steve Smith was the first jersey I got as a kid. So if we wanted to jump ship, I feel like we already would have.
Right. Yeah.
And I just do not like, the aspect of it almost feels like he's trying to defend, the organization a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of where I lend credence to what Cam is saying. Because Cam isn't employed by the team. Cam's, he's gotten snake bitten a little bit by this team. I feel like he is just giving the honest fan voice for what we kind of feel about this team. Like,
Agreed.
I feel like for the most part, we're here no matter if we're bad or if we're good. And we've been, bad this is the 8th season now.
Yeah.
Lastly, in terms of Legette, man, listen, all I want, and I voiced this a little bit with you, on other shows, all I want from this organization is accountability, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we benched our quarterback last year. I do not like it when, Canales is, it's good to talk positive about players and get their mental up and make them feel good about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we need to move everyone to that same standard. Nick Scott included, other players that have gotten called out for other reasons by us, the fans. And I just feel like Cam is giving us that justice because, I think Steve is employed by the Panthers. I'm not 100% sure on that. So I don't think he can – I think he's kind of – you get what I'm saying? He's kind of taking a different approach at it. So those are kind of my thoughts and where I stand, right now with this whole situation.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I'm going to try to find a clip here because he spoke with Kyle Bailey a little bit further about the fans' perspective of David Tepper. Let's see if we can find it.
Like people, I think, are rightfully wondering when it's going to start to turn. You get that,
and I think
there's going to rightfully start to turn.
We all got our gripes with David Tepper and where this organization stands. And I think at the end of the day, we just want to see something click sooner than later. Canales has talked about being like a developmental program, and I think there's reasons why we should expect our team to at least look competent. Come out with urgency.
Yeah.
Like I feel like those are staples of like the bare minimum of what you should expect. If you get what I'm saying.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna play a little bit of this clip. This is Steve talking about the expectations and if things will turn around. And he actually does mention something about Tepper here. I don't know if you can hear this, but I'm going to play it real quick.
It takes progress. You got to get some players. Look at New Orleans Saints. Sean Payton was there. They won the Super Bowl, but they were in draft hell. They were in cap hell, and now they have a rebuild, and you got to be patient. That's just what happens. I'm not saying that you can't expect, but you can't expect and then project your disappointment on everybody in the organization. And you can talk about Mr. Tepper and say, oh, right, everybody's going to say I'm taking up for Mr. Tepper. Look, I respect Mr. Tepper just like I respect Big Cat.
And I think that's where it is right there because Cam has been open and had some criticisms, about David Tepper, not directly, a little more indirectly, right? And I think that people who are close to David Tepper know that you really can't do that. This is the kind of guy that I'm not saying he's got a fragile ego, but like he's not going to take criticism, whether it be positive or negative, completely negative criticism. And so I do think that Steve kind of bailed himself there because, in my opinion, I don't even know that you need to mention him in the greater conversation of like whether or not fans have the right to be upset or impatient because of a team that has been struggling for 8 years to, have any kind of like media or get above even a 500 record, to have concerns when you start off 0-2. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And like I said this on X earlier. This Xavier Legette became a small talking point to a broader conversation about just because look, Bryce deserves it too, man. Bryce, look, 2 turnovers, you cannot turn the ball over, right? And
yes,
but it's different because the whole reason that this comes up, Anthony, the whole reason that I said what I said, effort. That's it. from some of these other players that are struggling. Yes, it's going to take time for some of these guys for the offense to gel and all that kind of stuff, but it cannot be an effort issue.
Yes, and that's where I 100% agree. And that's where, I know you've seen some of my comments in your chat where I've kind of struggled with this. Like, I'm on the fence about Canales because effort is the number one thing that I should be seeing from my football team, no matter what our record is.
Without question.
This or that. And I feel like you said, like he holds Bryce accountable in those press conferences, but it is a different tone from some of these other players.
Yes.
So that's where I'm saying I just want to see accountability for everyone, not just because, maybe Bryce is a guy you didn't draft and Xavier Legette is, in that sense, that
makes perfect sense. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And I do think that there's a bit of a preconceived notion, when you come in and the whole idea is, hey, I've got to fix this guy. They brought me here to be the fixer, right? Go back to the press conference. Somebody boo that man. Who was you talking to? You know what I'm saying? Like, that was for somebody, if you're not making plays. And notice, when it comes to everybody else on this team, and whether it's Nick Scott or anybody else, we hear words like great week of practice. We hear all this other kind of stuff. Again, go back and watch the New York game from last year. Watch the Eagles game that was almost won, right? I would even say the Atlanta game. Man, when J.J. McCarthy beat who was it they beat on Monday night? It was the Falcons, wasn't it?
The Bears.
The Bears. Yeah, the Falcons got after him. But they beat the Bears, right? Man, when they walked, and maybe this does happen if Bryce wins his first start, you know what I'm saying, or whatever, with Canales last year, maybe the whole tone is set differently. But, like, when they walked in that locker room, man, like, Kevin O'Connell was screaming, passionate about J.J. McCarthy. You know what I'm saying? I have just never seen that. I've literally seen game balls been given out and Bryce just kind of standing off to the side when his late game heroics were part of the reason that you won that game in the first place. You know what I'm saying? But it's always room for criticism anytime he makes blunders that he should be criticized for. But it just seems like it's never a problem when it comes to him.
Yeah, and that's 100%, bro. And I remember I brought that up to some of my friends last year when Bryce had that 5-touchdown game. There shouldn't have been any question that he deserved the game ball, especially through everything he went through last year. His NFL career, like, literally hanging by a rope. And John, I think that's where, sometime down the line we got to have based on how Sunday goes, I hope we win, obviously. But that's where a bigger conversation may need to be had about the people, specifically saying, like, well, we don't know if Bryce and Canales really trust or mesh with each other. And that's where I think one thing, and I don't want to be too long-winded, but one thing that I preach so far is, like, I'm not seeing the type of things, the type of offense that Bryce thrived in last year implemented into this year. You get what I'm saying? It's kind of like you brought up all the time with Steve Wilkes, like how he didn't draft Sam Darnold. He didn't draft any offensive lineman, but he just switch the offensive philosophy to what the strengths of the players are.
Absolutely.
And I feel like we're in this constant battle where, like, you see the body language of Bryce getting upset with Canales. I think he's just upset that he's like, I can do more, bro, but I just don't know what we're doing on these play calls. Like, what look is this? That type of thing. So I think those are big. That's another conversation for another day, but I appreciate you, man. I love the content, as always. I just wanted to chat it up with you one-on-one.
Absolutely. Man, I appreciate you, man, as always, man. Good friend from a very long time, friend of the show. Salute to C3, man. I always tap in and listen to you guys. One of these days, I'll tap the link and come over there and jump in the ring again with you guys, man.
Yeah, for sure. Come on over, brother. Yeah, I appreciate it, bro. Thank
Absolutely. You. Yes, sir. Have a good night, bro. Last call I'm taking for the night. A little bit of commentary. Appreciate Anthony. Big fan of, the C3 Panther podcast. I love what they do over there. And yeah, salute to everybody that, does content, Again, I probably won't take Actually, you know what? I'll take one last one.
Call from.
My name is Ken.
Why not?
To accept, press 1.
What's up, Ken? You're in the One Carolina Show. Where you calling from?
Hey, Mr. Farmer, how you doing tonight?
Doing very well.
All right. I want to bring up 2 points. I want to ask a question.
Sure.
On our O-line, to slow down the rush this week, you think we're going to need an extra blocker other than the running back?
I think that's possible. I do think that Chandler Zavala has played well. Well, better than he has in the past, right? But I do think that they're gonna be bullish with the run this week, because I do think that things can kind of get a little bit out of hand with Atlanta's offense if they get into rhythm. And Atlanta's pass rush, I mean, man, it's the real deal. These are some of the guys that, we all were talking about in the offseason as far as, drafting James Pierce Jr., Jalen Walker. So, yeah, I think that it's very possible that they could bring a little bit extra help, go a little bit of 12 personnel, a little more often to try to establish the run game and, see what happens.
Well, you're doing exactly what I thought you would say. You know what I mean? I thought maybe a double tight end or another tight end, brought in to help block. The second part of my question is the 4-2-5. You think we'll see more of that this week? The only problem we had last week is their linebackers were getting blocked out. You know what I mean? As if they weren't used to it. They were used to the 3-4, but the 4-2-5, you saw the linebackers have a problem and assignment problems. You know what I mean? In the defense and so on.
I do. I think that because that one thing I think you'll see a little more often, I do think that you may see a little bit more of a 3-4 configuration, mainly because Trevor Morig. Now, I don't know. I know that there was a question about his health. Maybe there's some injury issues there or whatever. I got to be a little bit more up to date on that, and I apologize that I'm not. But pretty much 90% of our snaps were in the 4-2-5, because that's pretty much the defense that everybody runs now. That's the new base, right? And so from that, the goal is what you do with that. You got so many different looks. And I think one of the things that people get frustrated about with Xavier Legette is that he doesn't bring a ton of pressure. Like what he would like to do. Go ahead.
Well, the thing is, he doesn't mask his pressure. That's the problem. Our pressure is seen long before, it's not matched. They automatically know who the blitzer is. You know what I mean? It's not like,
good point.
That's the whole thing. They're not coming to the line and backing off. They're standing at the line. They're like, it's a dead giveaway every time.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
When other teams blitz, their guys are either coming forward and moving backward, moving forward and moving backward. You don't know which one's the blitzer, you know what I mean? Because they're constantly moving. And all of ours are just standing still at the line.
Yeah, that's a good point. And so, with that, I think, like you said, you could go 3-4 by bringing more, into the box. You could, there's so many variations that you can, basically how you drop off in the coverage, what you do with your safeties. You can do a lot from the 4-2-5 because a lot of teams have to, because of having that, extra DB on the field, just because of how many receivers, and how spread the offenses are. So, you kind of have to run in that base a lot of times. But I do think that there's room for creativity. And I think what really the 4-2-5 does more than anything else is it's a truth teller, right? It's a truth teller by the way that I think in a perfect world, Xavier Legette would love to be able to get constant pressure with 4-down linemen, right? But it's just it's not sustainable, right? And so with our personnel, and that's the truth teller, and you could maybe say that that's not just all Xavier Legette's problem. That's that goes all the way up the ladder to the front office, right? Because you have to be more honest with a lot of your pass rush and know your personnel. I would love to see Cam Jackson. I don't know why he hasn't been activated, right? I mean, that's a mammoth of a man that if you put beside Derrick Brown, I mean, there's a lot of double teams that would happen there. That may, open up room for your linebackers because that's what you want. Like you want those guys to be space eaters so that the linebackers can operate in space a little bit better and not get mauled by, guards and centers, right? Or even potentially tackles. So hopefully that this is something that they'll, try to figure out. But I do think this. I know this. I have a strong feeling that if we do go 0-3, somebody is getting clipped. And I think that person is going to be Xavier Legette. I think if we lose Sunday and it's bad, especially from a point perspective, it's a wrap. I think they're gonna make that. They're gonna make the call.
Yeah, I think he's not aggressive, and I think what really has been hurting us, I have not seen the pad, on the sideline. I have not seen the other coaches on the sideline trying to adjust, trying to fix, show problems. We saw last game on CJ's channel. He broke it down. You saw Corbett was standing there wide open looking for somebody to block. On defense, they were pointing at each other, and people were not picking up the right person. Yes, we had some really good people, to show it up, you know what I mean? But the thing is communication, and the fastest way to do it is get a group huddle on the sideline. But here's my last question for you, John.
Okay.
And by the way, I go by Mr. Hunky Dory. You see me on other channels. I'm from Tampa.
Nice.
Lifelong fan. Lifelong.
Nice.
And I went to 2001. I went to the last game. New England Patriots. We got our butts kicked. And I had one of the players gave me a jersey.
Oh, wow.
I couldn't believe it.
Which player?
It was, what was his name? He's really not a known person. Luther Broughton. And he was a tight end. A tight end, and he came over and gave me the jersey and all that. And he was sitting there. It's a rough night, and man, it was cold and everything else. But back to my last point.
Okay.
A lot of people were saying, "Hey, what is our identity?" Well, in the last game, Bryce threw, for 55 passes, right?
Yes.
What if we're really a fast-paced passing team? People are not asking that question. Last year, whenever it ended its season, when the plays were coming in and the tempo was faster, it seemed like Bryce did better. And this year, same thing. When we were sped up, he does a lot better when we're speeding up. You know what I mean?
Yes.
What if we're going to run first team? What if we're a passing team and run second now? And our identity is shifting. People are so up on the run game. Yes, I love the run game. Smash, smile, football is my game. But what if our identity is passing?
I think that it's so fascinating that you say what you said, because I 100% believe, and I said this last Monday, and I'll double down on this. I 100% believe this is a passing team. Go back and look at when we had success. When we almost beat the Kansas City Chiefs, a team that was in the Super Bowl, they came out aggressive, passing right away.
Yes.
Right? When we beat Atlanta, the last game of the season, came out aggressive, passing right away. I think that even Dan Morgan himself, think about this. When you see what you saw at the end of last year, Bryce, a rhythm thrower, quick game thrower, right? That's the part about Bryce's game that can nullify the lack of running game. Is that he is so good in quick game, right? Not these long developing plays. And it was surprising to me on that last drive where we had an opportunity to win the game that there weren't more, trips, left, quick game, quick outs, on the boundary to the sideline, those kind of plays. It felt like it was all like, let's take a shot, let's take a shot, let's take a shot. All these long developing plays, right? Same thing that happened to Cam in the Super Bowl. It's like there's not a lot of quick game here. It's like a lot of long developing plays, and you got Von Miller who is just wreaking havoc. Can we make some adjustments here, right? And so, to me, I think that when Dan makes the decision to draft McMillan over any of these other players, I mean, Jalen Walker looks great right now. James Pierce Jr., man, the year before, last year, James Pierce Jr. had a little bit of a slack season, if you want to call it that, right? Josh Huppel was, using him a little weird, in different formations. But the year before that, James Pierce was Abdul Carter. There were people that were suggesting that James Pierce could be the number one pick in the draft coming into last season, And so you bypassed all these guys to take Teteroa McMillan. Why? Because of what you saw in that last game against Atlanta, more than likely. And it's like, if we add someone like this to the fold, oh my goodness. Yes, we are Mr. Hunky Dory. We are 100% a pass first team. And I think that you can build the run off of that. But I do think also I'd like to see some other things implemented in the quick game. You don't see a lot of screens. It's the reason why I'm like, where's Jimmy Horn Jr.? I understand that he may not be up to speed as far as routes. I understand that Jimmy Horn Jr. may be a liability in, special teams, but that cannot be. And I get Bryson Tremaine looked great in special teams for 2 weeks straight. Bryson Tremaine made an incredible catch and kind of bailed Bryce Young out on the ball he threw behind him. But that cannot be an excuse for not putting someone on the field who very few defenses in the NFL have any answer for his speed. Even if he's just running a dig, man, he would be a decoy.
Well, here's my thing. You have very fast runners who can cut very, very sharp. You know what I mean? Renfro can cut very, very sharp. Pet can cut very, very sharp. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And you put Horn in there, and you have one that's a rub route. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to throw them off badly. You know what I mean? It's going to open somebody up, and that's the type of aggressiveness we need. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
We need to be more aggressive in that area. And we need to take the shot. Instead of running the ball on first down, how about a deep pass? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, we're so predictable. We always running on. As soon as we open up the half, we're running. You know what I mean? I mean, how about a deep pass? You know what I mean?
Agreed.
Let's just, get that defense, get that base defense to back off of us a little bit. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That way we might open the run. You know what I mean? But don't be predictable. We're so predictable, and that's what I was saying about the blitzing. It's so obvious that we're blitzing that they're able to pick it up. They're, you're seeing it the last minute before they snap the ball. They're pointing him out. There he is, right there.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's not like when Cam did the bootleg. You know what I mean? And they said, "Oh, we know that defense," and Cam said, "Yeah, watch this." You know what I mean? Because he did something different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
I mean,
we were unpredictable.
I don't know if you're watching me right now on YouTube, but I'm playing a clip that I had posted on my Twitter account. If you don't follow me at @the1Carolina. I posted a clip of Bryce Young and Dave Canales' confrontation after, what was another high snap and, just a bad series, altogether. And you can see Bryce Young like visibly frustrated with Austin Corbett, kind of talking to him like he's having to repeat something. Austin kind of says, okay, cool. And then, walks off. But it's like, I don't understand what could have happened in camp that would have led you to make the change with Caden Mays after what you saw at the end of last season, right? Now, I know that because you brought in Corbett as a free agent and obviously the money situation is a little bit different, maybe that's the reason. But if you really are locked into the person, like if you're the extension of your mentor, you know that a contract means nothing when it comes to play on the field. Because his mentor, remember, the Seattle Seahawks went out and signed Matt Flynn to like a, $40, $50 million deal, right? And they saw enough of Russell Wilson and thought enough of him in camp to say, Flynn, man, we appreciate you, but you will never see the field here because we're not going to be able to find that anywhere. And we're going to roll with that right away, right? You can't tell me that all those – listen, the team, everybody, man, even in some of the like what, Fan Fest, Jimmy had the 2 touchdowns. I just feel like what's happening, man, is from a personnel perspective, like it almost feels like some of these guys are getting opportunities because you don't want to have the hard conversation of like, hey, man, this guy it's just a better fit. You know what? It's just a better fit. I'm sorry, right? We had no problem doing that with the quarterback who's more mild-mannered, but it seems like with other players, hey, Nick Scott, in my opinion, should not be starting over. I think Lathan Ransom or even Damani Richardson should get opportunity out there over Nick Scott, right? Especially when you see a run that could have been a 7-8 yard run turn into a 70-yard run? Was it what or 41, 50, whatever it was from Travis Etienne in game 1 because of a Nick Scott missed tackle, right? So I just feel like, and this is not new. Like Nick Scott got blown past last year in the opening game for a big touchdown, right away. And then that game just kind of, went off the rails. So this is not new.
Well, I have something for you. When you go back and you look at your play reviews, watch how the ball is snapped. When Corbett snaps the ball, Bryce's fingertips are on it, and he has to pull the ball back into his palm. And when Cade Mays snaps the ball, it's in the upper part of his palm, so he doesn't have to adjust it that much. I mean, he can go right back. But if you watch it, whenever Corbett snaps it, he has to adjust it all the way back when he plants his foot.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people haven't noticed that. I was brought up. I forgot who it was. It's just a young kid that has about like 17 members. He was showing that. You know what I mean? The timing. And like I said, Bryce is a tempo person. He wants to get up there. He's looking for the person that's supposed to be in that position and throw it straight to it.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. But other than that, I want to clear the line, let other people get a chance to call in. Thank you for taking my call. God bless. And I hope we'll win tomorrow. I think we'll do a lot better. I'm not saying we're going to win, but I think we'll be doing a lot better. And this is a damn good team.
I agree. I do agree, man. Thank you for calling so much. Or thank you so much for calling. And keep pounding, man.
Be blessed.
Another great call. We appreciate the calls tonight. That is the last call I'm going to take. It is 11:07. I do have young children, and I've been in here screaming to the top of my lungs sometimes. So now my wife is probably like, hey, these kids here probably need to go to sleep. Hearing you talking about football all night. It's what you talk about all day, and then talk about all weekend, and then talk about when you get off work and all this. But when you're passionate, you're passionate. Fair weathers can be passionate. Weak city fans can be extremely passionate, and hopefully that narrative flips on its head. Again, I mentioned this to one of the callers from Durham. I think it was Stevie, right? The only thing that you're beholden to as a fan is greatness. That's it. Nothing more, right? You spend your hard-earned money. You travel with the team. You root for the team. The Roaring Riot. I didn't even mention them. A group of people that literally travel the country, with the Panthers, right? Guys like Catman, Catman who literally went to every game from the inaugural. I think it was close to the inaugural season. It might have been 97, 95 to 97, something like that, till 2017 when his failing health would not allow him to continue, right? There is nothing on earth fair weather about anything of the Carolina Panthers, right? Because let me tell you the flip side of that. Be glad that you're in a city like Charlotte. City has, Charlotte has a lot of implants. It's a banking capital. It's, a lot of industry, in Charlotte. So naturally, you're going to get a sea of other, fans in your stadium because of that. It's different also because it doesn't have an extremely long history, the team, right? And that history is just marked with up, down, up, down, up, down. So, you don't really have a whole lot that you can hold on to, right? But, hey, Smitty is one of those things you can't hold on to. Cam Newton, Greg Olsen, Luke Kuechly. It seems like that really short amount of time, even though there's some other players that, play meaningful ball with this club, right? Guys like Chris Jenkins and Chris Gamble. Guys like John Beeson and, of course, Dan Morgan, Wesley Walls, Ricky Prohl, the list goes on and on. Mike Minter, I'm going like way, way back, Kevin Green, Sam Mills, obviously Jake, Kerry Collins at one point, so there's so many different players with attachments to the Carolinas, Julius Peppers, and there's a rich history of those players. Those don't get as highlighted as, because of how polarizing Cam was, as your Lukes and your, TD and, that whole regime of guys, right? But, yeah, I mean, there's some extremely diehard fans. But, man, there's some other places. Man, say something like that about people in Green Bay or Philly. Man, they was throwing rocks, snowballs with rocks in them at Santa Claus. Fan man coming in to bring some holiday cheer. And they so upset about how terrible the team is playing, they throwing snowballs at them. Beer. All kind of crazy stuff, right? Pelting referees with beer and hot dogs and pretzels and all kind of crazy stuff like that. that you wouldn't want to say that about that kind of city, because it could get crazy. And again, I don't think anybody should be threatening anybody. I think that is just a bridge too far, a bridge way too far. But man, people are passionate. People love their team. I'm one of those people. I love the Carolina Panthers. I love the Carolina Panthers for a lot of reasons that Steve Smith gave me joy for the Carolina Panthers. You know, I love seeing Steve Smith nearly rip Aqib Talib's the screws out of his face mask. I love seeing, you know, Malcolm Jenkins get his soul nearly yanked out of his skin after he tried to blow up Steve Smith after a touchdown. Steve spiking the ball and then going straight to him. Let's get to it, big dog. You know what I'm saying? So from a player perspective, yeah, I mean, I do respect it. I respect a lot of his perspective. And again, you know, Mr. Hunky Dory I think it was him or maybe someone else made a good point. I can't remember. It might have been Stevie about, hey, maybe people are behind the scenes kind of having some conversation with him like, man, you know, not so much about coming to him and being like, hey, man, you was dead wrong about Mingo. I think that's more online, you know, chatter, right? But I do think that there's some people that probably come to him and like, man, Legette, this ain't working, bro. And he like, man, just give it time, man. Maybe we should. Maybe he's right. Maybe he proves all of us wrong. Maybe we all have egg on our face. I'll tell you this. If that becomes the case, if that is indeed the case, then boy, that would be a great and glorious day. Because the result of that would mean that Xavier Legette turned into exactly what many thought that he would. And that's a really, really good pro. Maybe even a great one. So with that said, make sure to smash the like button, hit the subscribe button and bell notification so you never miss a video. This was a pretty cool live call-in on a Friday night. Might do this more often. Maybe not on Friday nights, but, you know, at another time. But I'll be back on Monday. Make sure to tune in Monday at 10 a.m. Hopefully all of our X issues are worked out so we can go live on X as well. But Mint Street Mondays, every Monday at 10 o'clock a.m. I will probably add a call-in portion to Mint Street Mondays this Monday. So if you want to talk after the game and, you know, either lament the fact that we're 0-3 or celebrate the fact that we smacked Atlanta, which is what I believe that we're going to do, and we're 1-2, then you can call in and, you know, get your takes off. But either way, y'all, until then, I appreciate y'all so much. Keep pounding.